So you're all wrestling together with cubism and abstraction, and I wanted to step in and kind of focus on, highlight, and elaborate on some really excellent points that have been made. So here Sierra is saying, for me, cubism is hard to understand because it seems so incongruous with the art we have seen before. That's a wonderful word to use. It doesn't align with, it doesn't meet our expectations based on the whole tradition we've been studying. And she talks about that in terms of the portrait of Daniel Henry Conviler. And she's absolutely right. It is so incongruous with what you've studied. Think back to the beginning of the semester, Rembrandt, Nicholas von Rutz, the whole tradition of the portrait based on the marvelous illusionism of being able to describe the appearance of the clothing, the fur that he trades, every detail of his beard, his flesh, his eyes, and all of that is gone when you look at Conviler. It's interesting that you have the bare bones fossil record of the form of a body in portrait convention, right? Head and shoulders, waist up, the way you see in Rembrandt's portrait. But no longer can you feel as if you are seeing the person. And that's exactly what Sierra says when she says, is this meant to depict a person? Because I would never have known without the title. The forms are unrecognizable and to me, and unlike other portraits which display emotion, status, or action, I cannot relate to the figure who I can barely see. And this is the problem with Cubism. The problem is that it thwarts our desires for what we expect art should give us. And Elise picks up on that really beautifully, reminding us that we've been trained through this class and through the tradition of art history, Western art, to be looking for a clear and recognizable story in clear perspective with a clear setting and figures. And it's wonderful how she says Cubism doesn't care about all of that in the slightest. I want to emphasize what she says next, because this is very insightful. We are left to our own devices to interpret jagged shapes and faint symbols. What she's doing that's so beautiful here is she's actually dramatizing what goes on for the viewer in the experience of looking at one of these strange paintings. What exactly we find ourselves doing. We have little to no linear perspective, which is usually used in defining a plane of action or scene. So we also must decide as the viewer what's happening within, I love this phrasing, within a cloud of swirling and undefined masses. With the painting by Rembrandt, you know exactly what you're supposed to do as a viewer. You're supposed to enjoy the sumptuous dazzle of surfaces and appearances. You're supposed to admire Nicholas von Rutz and admire Rembrandt for his ability to make you feel as if you are actually looking at the portrait sitter. And Elise goes on, again very beautifully, to say, what we do when we look at Braque's Man with Guitar is to confront a swarm of bold intersecting lines and shapes, which leaves us wondering, what is it we're supposed to be seeing here? Where is there a man? Where is there a guitar? We struggle. We struggle because Braque has refused to give us what we want, because he doesn't give us a seamless illusion to enjoy. What he gives us instead is our own process of confronting the process of seeing and decoding, confronting the sense of the artwork as a construction that was assembled out of pieces and that we are attempting to puzzle out. What Picasso and Braque do is they problematize the act of representation and our act of interpreting representation. Problematize is an important word for scholars and in critical thinking because it's a word that means taking something you assume you know and confronting, making it a question again. So here's the dictionary definition: making into or regard as a problem requiring a solution. taking something and saying, wait, what is this thing? How do we understand it? How do we figure it out? That's a great deal of what academic inquiry is about. And so their example is he problematized the concept of history. You think you know history, you use the word every day, but what if you stop and actually thought about it? What do we mean by history? How do we organize history? What are our assumptions? And Picasso and Braque are problematizing the act of viewing. You are now becoming very active as a viewer because of the fact you don't comfortably go to what you know. You don't comfortably go to, well, that's not what I meant to do, to the portrait as you understand it. Portraiture has been problematized, it has been made strange, and you are now conscious in a new way of the act of making meaning or attempting to make meaning out of sign symbols, out of the pieces of the world that are laid down, of your active engagement as a thinker in constructing reality.